So do you have to know someone really pisses me off? If the only thing preventing it from being nepotism is a blood relation, then why isn't it just called nepotism? Well, nepotism by default isn't bad. Nepotism is just like person gets thing because person knows them, right? And it could be regardless of qualifications. It could also be that they do have qualifications, right? It doesn't have to be bad, but people always use it when talking about bad things. But really what you mean is cronyism, which is like the more generalized, like it's not necessarily just blood relation, right? Cronyism is the same thing, but like now it could also be, I don't know, your boss's nephew that you hired or something like that, right? But all of that is totally fine if the person still has qualifications, because I do think there is something to say about hiring and taking care of your own and how that is good, and how you knowing more about them makes you as the person hiring less susceptible to hiring someone awful because you know their background, you know? But yeah, if they don't actually have the qualifications, then fuck that. But I think if you're presented with two like near equal candidates and you actually know one, so-and-so's friend, and you don't know the other, you should hire the one that you know? Because there's a lot more. I think it's important to have more personal human connection to the people you work with. It's good because a lot of bosses find it really easy to just cut workers and cut pay and do all these different things that are not good. But if that worker is somehow related to them, even if it's not their family member, it's their friend's cousin's nephew, whatever, they're going to treat them a lot better. So in general, things being done on a more local level, a lot of hires being more known by people or somehow interconnected in a web, keeps everyone in that environment safer and treated more with more humanity, right? So it's good. And then what happens is the people who work in those companies that are not actually related to anyone in any way, they're still some other coworker's friend, and that coworker's your son's uncles, nephews, whatever, right? So it's like it just keeps everyone, even the ones that aren't related, they get tangled up in it too because they become friendly with these coworkers, right? And yeah, the dynamics just kind of keep people like it's not dehumanizing as much, right? But when every worker you have is not socially related to you in any way, I find that people that are higher ups in companies have an easier time just kind of like throwing them away. So sometimes it is kind of good to have people in your company that are like actually just full nepotism hired in, because like they'll be a regular worker, they might hear your plea and then go complain to their uncle who's your boss, and you know what I mean? Like they force those people to all see each other as humans a little more. That's one of those like the silver lining of it. It can kind of help a lot of the people in the company, even the ones who aren't those people that were hired by nepotism or cronyism, right? But it doesn't always work out perfectly like that, of course. But I've seen a lot of that help keep people protected. Or like you ever try to use a sick day and they're like asking for a doctor's note even though legally they don't have to? They don't do that when you're the best friend of someone in the office or close to someone in the office who was hired by like, you know, some sort of knowing somebody and all that. Like, you know what I mean? It just keeps that like little layer of they think about you as a human there. But yeah, I've always found that it it reminds them of all those things. But in general, the most common case is going to be that someone's just hiring their own kid in or their own nephew or niece in, and that's it, really. You know, like they just hire them just cause. But it's not something you're ever gonna get around. It's one of those arguments where I'm like, I agree, but you can't do anything about it. So complaining about it in general does nothing. Instead, you just have to be passive aggressive in the office, all right? Because I've been in those situations. So and so doesn't do their job at all, and it's literally just completely inept. But you're forced to work with them anyway. So I would just point it out every fucking day. I had this one guy on this one project that just actually knew nothing about what he was doing, and he was supposed to be one of these major people holding up this one major part of this project. And everything else was moving along, and his wasn't. So what I did was I pointed it out every single meeting. Completely passive-aggressively, never full aggression. They would be like, oh, and how's that going along? And he'd be like, oh, you know, and he'd like bullshit. And I'd sit there, and then I'd just look at him and ask a specific question. I'd ask a specific question. Is blank thing done? And he'd be like, oh, no, not yet. We're working on it. And I'd be like, okay, when can I expect it to be done by? Be like, I don't know, it takes time. And I go, okay, on average, how long does it take? We'll estimate the long end. I just want to have an idea because I need to come back to you on that because it's related to what I'm doing. And I would just press him and press him and press him to give me an answer, set an expectation, then I'd write it down. And then on the date that he said, this is the longest it could be done by, I'd be like, oh, you said this is the longest it could be done by. And he'd be like, oh, it's not done. And I'd be like, why? That's so crazy. Did something happen? Then I'd be like, oh no, do you need help? What went wrong specifically? Tell me about it. Present your knowledge to me. You know what I mean? Like, and I would just ask so many questions. I'd always frame it like, do you need help? You know? And just that's how you deal with that stuff, man. No, I wasn't even a manager on that project, dude. I was just working. I was just working on another part of stuff and had to interface with his shit. So I was like, all right. I love asking questions in meetings. In that case, in that specific case, the manager was someone who like absolutely did not give a fuck if that dude did his work or not on a personal level, but did give a fuck about if the project got done. So I just kept verbally pointing out how shit wasn't being done, you know? That's just how you do it, man. When someone's like a nepo hire who actually like cannot perform, you just do it. And then I did start getting full aggressive later when like entire things weren't getting done and some higher up was like, I'm gonna cut this team if this thing isn't blah, blah, blah. I would just be like, hey, yeah, you know, it's just so crazy. Everything's done except for this guy's work. And, you know, I've done that before. It should only take like a month and it's been 3. So crazy. You should ask him. You should ask him why. You know what I mean? That's just so crazy with 5 O's. So crazy. You're describing how I handled the same type of shit and I eventually got told to just leave them alone. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is you just keep pointing it out forever. Okay, you want me to leave it alone? Cool, I'll just point it out and I won't touch it forever. It will never end until you do something. That's, you know what I mean? You gotta become the Joker. You gotta go full Joker moment. Huh. Last office job was like that. They hired a consultant who had no certifications, which led to a thing revealing the boss also had no certs. Happy to not be there no more. Whenever you're in those situations, that's when you sit back and just collect money and don't do shit. Like, because for me, personally, every month that dude didn't do his work meant another month that I could sit there and have nothing to do and just collect money. I could just go take other work and use those hours for that. Because this motherfucker was holding everything up and my work was done, you know? I just had to sit in meetings and be like, yep, no updates, yep, no updates, yep, everything's done, haha, yay. Right? So I was just like, woohoo, you know, like glad he wasn't doing his shit. Because I was like, all right, I'll just keep collecting my money and then I'll take other work, so I'm getting double money, and give it to my mom, you know? So, you know, you take your wins where you can get them. There was a guy on a government contract that got hired as an AWS certified solutions architect, but he didn't know what variables were. How do you get an AWS cert as a solutions architect? Brother, people just be saying shit sometimes. I would kill him. I would have killed him. I would have defenestrated the guy. I don't know. Fraud, I guess. Yeah, I guess. More like a questions architect. Shut the fuck up. In person, everyone's like stepping on eggshells. You can't insult someone's kid, whatever. We need to bring back like disapproving glances for little things. You know, I see a parent not doing well. I'm going to comment